G'day guys, welcome to the channel. Now that I've finished this 300ZX as far as bodywork goes, and I've got it ready for paint, pretty much, I'm going to put it aside because we're actually waiting for some feedback on some paint booths that I might be interested in setting up here. So in the meantime, we're going to jump across onto the XA 4-door. Yep, you guys asked for it, so we're going to get into it. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in again. So I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of do a little bit of a refresher of where we left off on this XA 4-door, which is going to kind of be a little bit of a GT replica clone type thing. We did inner and outer sills, part of the trunk floor or boot floor, but we did all around where the rubber seal goes. What else? There were multiple patches and stuff here and there. Oh yeah, of course we did both of the lower rear quarters. You can see the line where it was welded. We also did the wheel arches. We got these new guards from Rare Spares, and the reason I got them is because the XA guards that I had were going to require extensive paint stripping plus rust, so I had to do inner and outer lower rust repairs down there. Then I was going to have to cut in the flute area for the, for the GT, whatever you call it, grill type thing, flute type thing. And I looked at it and I went, for all of that, these were available, so I just went and got a pair of these from Rare Spares. It's maybe a little tight at the top, a little bit wide down there. Now I've got all my door adjusted right. If you look at all my door gaps, door in relation to frame and whatnot, it's fairly close. So with the doors all being where I want them, I'm just going to concentrate on this gap. Now, you could add material to the guard, or you could add material to the door. What I'm going to probably do is I'm going to add material to the door, and the reason being is because, where the skin's folded over right at the front here, that's just basically a fairly flat area. And you can add a bit of filler rod or whatever onto it, and then you can grind it, sand it off or whatever. And the other advantage is, being a fairly flat area, when you weld things, it tends to shrink in. So if I was to weld right up there, what will happen is the door will want to go like that. It'll want to sort of shrink in. So you'll end up with a bulge here and this whole edge will be lower. Well, what you can do there is, once you've plenished it off and you've got like a nice flat area to work with, you can basically just put the dolly behind it and hammer it out. And by hammer and dollying that edge, you'll actually stretch the metal back out again. And the reason why you wouldn't do it with the guard, or I wouldn't do it with the guard, is because it's not a perfectly flat area. This metal, it sort of curves around and then it comes along flat, but it doesn't roll back flat against itself. It more sort of like curves in. So I'm going to leave that alone and I'll just work on the door. A bit of a different story on the passenger side. For whatever reason, it's a big gap. What's that, 10 mil, 10.8? 10.8. I'm going to probably want to get 5 or 6 mil max. But yeah, 10 definitely, it's way too much. So, and what are we up here, 7. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add material all the way up the door and then trim it off so it's, exactly where I want it. And again, we've been through and we've got all these, the rest of it in relation to frame, everything else. If you look at the back here, the gap's not too bad. So from quarter panel forward, the doors are where I want them. So we don't want to change the doors, but we do want to add a bit of material to the front of the door. What I could do, sometimes when it's not too much, when you don't have to add too much, you can just start blobbing a weld on, just put a little spot, cool it off, add another spot, whatever. When you need to add a lot of material, then some welding rod, like arc welding rod, just knock the flux off it and go ahead and weld that on. I mean, it's mild steel, it's easy to work with. Being curved, it means that where it contacts, the edge of the door, it's going to be sort of like that. So you know what I'm saying, where you can sort of like add a little bit of filler into it. This is going to require a lot. So I might use a bit of 6 mil rod and just sort of plenish both sides of it down But being rounded, as I say, you put the rounded edge up against the slightly rounded edge of the door and put your weld into that. What I'm trying to say, it gives you an area to penetrate. Does that make any sense? I don't make a lot of sense, do I? When I talk, in my mind it all sounds great, but it seems like when it comes out, it sounds like garbage. I'm sure you guys, some of you guys have some idea what I'm trying to say. But I think actions speak louder than words. So how about I just get into it and show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so what I think I might do to resolve this gap problem is I've got this rod here. This is just 6mm mild steel round rod, and I think what I'll do is I'm going to just kind of bend it into the rough shape of the edge of the door and then lay it down on the bench and sort of, you know, take some skims off either side. I basically take like 1.5mm off either side, you know, to bring this down to 3mm. And why I say 3mm is because this door skin is, you've got the thickness of the skin, then you've got the thickness of the door frame lip and the thickness of the skin when it's folded around. So you've got 3 thicknesses. So it's probably a little bit less than 3mm, but let's just say 3mm for argument's sake. 1mm per, you know, skin thickness. So if we're going to add something on, I'm thinking let's make it something around 3mm. So that's why I'm thinking of this. Oh, and the other reason is because like this stuff's so easy to work with, so easy to sort of bend into shape. Rather than me trying to cut bits of metal and tack them on and whatever, I can pretty much get everything I want out of one piece of rod. So I'll go ahead and I'll try to bend it into the shape. Once I've got the shape that I want, I'll lay it flat on the bench and we'll do some skims. It's alright till there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I think it's probably easier if I get the shape before I grind the flat, because once you grind the flat, then you've got like fairly thin that side and then long this side, and I don't know what it'll do if I try to manipulate it. And it's going to want to go all directions now. How about just do that? Oh, that's probably done it. Yeah, close enough. So we get to about there, and then I've got to give her a hard kind of, yeah. It's all about tongue placement. So I got that. I'm not going to do any more. I think I'll just cut it at that. Probably check how we're going for thickness, eh? Oh, is that enough? That's in a foreign language called inches. Millimeters, right. All right, so it was 6mm. Oh, we didn't take much off, now it's 5.3. All right, we've still got a fair way to go. All right, so I think we're getting close. You know, we've got 2.9 up here. You know, it's all over the place. 3.6, 3.7, 2.5. That's fine. Anyway, so now I think what I'll do is I'll just get the paint off the front edge of the door, and we'll go ahead and we'll start tacking this in place. Yeah, see how she looks then. Actually, I forgot that we actually had already done body work on this door. So there's a bit of filler on here, but anyway. We won't take it all. I'm just going to take enough off for me to get, you know, the welder to make contact, and then we'll check it out after that. We might have to then sand it back more because, you know, if filler gets too hot, it'll probably start lifting or whatever, but we'll leave it there for now because it might actually help as insulation. You know, when you weld metal, you could, you know, to help with the heat spreading, you can put cold packs on and whatnot. You can get that that gel that stops the heat spreading, and actually filler can actually help as well. Anyway, let's not go into that because that's being way too opinionated. So I think it was something like that. I might have to, you know, do it in a section. I might have to cut it a bit here and there, but I think it's somewhere around here. It's interesting to watch what metal does when you weld it. Like when I zapped that, this thing went whoa like that. You can sort of feel it now. So I've got the majority of that welded on. Just got a little piece down the bottom which I'll fix up later. What else was I going to say? Yeah, so now that that's welded on, what I want to do is try to even up the gap. Now I've got this little tool which I made, which is just, you know, an old drill bit. It's actually a 6mm drill bit. So I've cut that, as you can see, so that what I can do is fit it into a gap and then use it as a scriber. As I run that up there, it'll put a line exactly on 6mm, but I do have to have a gap big enough to get it into, and at the moment it won't fit in there. So I need a gap probably about at least 3.5mm. So what I'm going to do, where it's tight there, I'm just going to run the little sander through there a few times to open the gap up. Bearing in mind that what I welded on was a solid piece of steel, 6mm thick, so I've got plenty of good stuff to grind into. And yeah, once I've got clearance, I think what I might do is, even just to make it a little easier to see, I'll put some engineering ink on there, like blue ink, and that way when I scribe it'll be real easy to see the line, and then all I've got to do then is sand up to the line, and then we've got our thickness, we've got our correct gap. After that, we do have another thing to take care of. Now this This door was sitting in slightly from the guard before, but now with all the welding, I don't know how well you can see that actually, probably not very well. Anyway, can you see that? Anyway, with all the welding, yeah, it's kind of did what I said it would do. It's kind of curved and it's tightened up, but we're not going to worry about that for now. I'm just going to get my gap right, then probably take the door off and do the hammer and dolly work and just bring that edge out where I need it to be. And all I'll do, if it's on the bench, I'll just hammer and dolly it until the edge comes out in line with the rest of the surface. And I'll probably be able to get rid of some of that body filler as well. I probably won't need as much. So we'll go ahead and we'll work on that. Had to wait for the battery to charge up for the camera, and in the meantime I went ahead and pulled the door off. So what I'm going to do now, just going to quickly run up the back side with the welder and just stitch up that joint on that side and plenish it, and then we've got a solid inside and outside. And then once it's plenished, I'm going to go ahead with the hammer and dolly and see if I can't stretch that metal out a little bit more. Alright, so I've got it all welded up inside and plenished, and we'll flip her over. And obviously the heat's come through, but that's nothing. Anyway, what we've got to do is, now we've got to correct the distortion. So obviously all that heat gone into the panel creates a certain amount of distortion. So if we look there, like that, there. So that's what I was explaining before. You go and weld that whole seam and the whole thing just clinches together. So I'm going to go ahead with the hammer and dolly and just belt the crap out of it. Well, it's not really the official term, but and so what I'm going to do, because I'm probably going to put like a lot of hammer marks and stuff in it, I'll put the dolly on this side and I'll be hammering from that side, and see how we go with that. That's about it. So we've got the edge of it up where we want it. So if I just put a ruler on and we look at it like that, hopefully you can see how much of a difference doing that hammer and dolly work made. It's slightly low there, but then comes back again. I'm not even going to worry about it. So all in all, that's turned out pretty good. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to put a light coat of epoxy on there, just out of an aerosol, just to seal it, and then we'll put it back on and we'll see how it looks. The good thing about using that the 6mm rod is that you can leave it a little bit thicker if you want, so you've got a bit more to sort of grind off and work with. But also once you're finished, like how I've done the hammer and dolly work, I can then come back and check the thickness along the edge there, and as I did before, I just sort of like took a little bit more off, and at least by doing all of that you end up with a nice thin edge, and you don't have to sort of like compensate by adding a whole lot more filler, and end up with a really ugly thick looking edge because there's so much filler in it. Now this door does have a lot of filler in this, just in this area. It was pretty bad, and it might have been a little bit beyond my skill level to try to file finish it all, so I got it as close as I could, and then I filled the rest. So, but having said that, even though it looks like a lot of filler, at the end of the day when you grind it off you might be looking at 2, 3 at the max in a couple of places. So alright, we'll go ahead, we'll seal that up and we'll put it back on, see how it looks. Alright, now I've put that skim of filler over there. I'm going to go over it with some 40 grit quickly, and just to knock the top off it, and then I'll step up to 80 grit. And that's about it. Got a nice 5.5 to 6mm gap all the way down. Right down here at the sill, I'm going to have to do something right on the end of that sill just to close that up a little bit, but I'll do that another time. And I pretty much achieved what I wanted to do here, which was close the gap and keep the edge of the door just looking normal. So if you look right on the edge of that door, you see that there's no excessive build-up or anything, it just looks normal. And that's pretty much all I wanted to achieve there. And yeah, pretty much happy with that. It's not a show car, but we want to make it look half decent, so there you go. Alright guys, so thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you in the next one.